from the national debt to student loans, from credit card payments to I bought dinner last time, now it's your turn. Debt plays a huge part in defining our very lives. Right? Debt is a sort of relationship between one person and another, or perhaps one person and a broader organization like a company or a government. Debt kind of constrains and limits who we can function and be, right? If I have a whole lot of debt, I can't then go out and get another loan. I won't be able to maybe put a down payment on a house, right? Debt controls us and limits us. It defines who we are. And when we're buried under mountains of debt, all we want to do is to have that debt forgiven. This plays a running theme throughout the Bible, right? If you go back all the way to Deuteronomy in the Old Testament, we can see things such as the concept of a year of Jubilee, in which every 70 years all debt would be forgiven, and land would be returned back to its original owners, and people would kind of come together in this hopeful, harmonic vision. And then through the New Testament and in today's reading, we see Jesus using debt as an illustrative example of how we should behave towards one another, the kind of forgiving nature that he wants to instill in us. He tells this story where in individuals' massive amounts of debt, right, like more debt than you could pay through a year or two of working is forgiven, right? And we'd like to think that like if we had that amount of debt forgiven, we would throw a party, maybe we would go be generous, we'd donate to everybody's, friends' GoFundMes, I don't know, we would do something celebratory with that debt. But I think far too often we are like this individual in the story, where instead of extending the grace that we have been given towards others, we take it and we use it to our own advantage, and then are unforgiving towards those that might owe us something, even if it's minuscule in comparison to the massive amount that we've been forgiven. This seems ridiculous, but if we just look at human society, that's how we function, right? We hold things over one another. We remember them for a long time. Like, how often can you remember, that one specific person embarrassed me once in 7th grade, and I'm never going to forgive them for that, right? It defines our very memory. It controls our thoughts and holds us. One of the cool things that Jesus does in illustrating this story is talk about how when we forgive other people, not only is it doing them some sort of service, we're not just extending grace to them, but we're extending grace to ourselves, right? This individual that couldn't forgive his neighbor was unable to really be forgiven himself. Right? He wasn't living life like you would if you truly had been forgiven the massive amounts of debt, right? I think metaphorically, that's kind of what the story is going for. It's saying that if you can't forgive these other people, it's pretty hard to accept forgiveness for yourself. So forgiveness isn't just some selfless, let me look out for you concept, but it affects us and allows us to be forgiven ourselves. When we look to, like last week we talked about, what the Holy Kingdom, what the Holy Community would look like. We talk a lot about how our relationships are with each other, and we extend out the principle of loving one's neighbor as oneself to issues of how we deal about reconciling our differences with others, and this week, how we forgive one another. It's kind of weird to think about, but could you imagine in heaven holding a grudge against somebody, or saying, they owe me $100 for this time I bought steak dinners or something like that. I don't know what a more relevant example for you might be, but it's just absurd, right? In heaven, why would we hold a grudge? Why would we carry this debt with us? It's something, not only are we holding over somebody else, but we're holding it in ourselves, right? It's like, I have this grudge, you gotta let it go, right? Why would we not live that way here on earth? Why is it so absurd to think that debts and grudges and lack of forgiveness is an absurd thing in heaven, but just normal everyday life here on earth? I challenge you guys to think about the situations in which you have been forgiven much, right? Obviously, the church answer is Jesus extended grace to all of us, and it's an overwhelming and all-consuming grace that we don't deserve. But maybe that's a little too hard for you to think about. It's too big and too massive to understand, and that's why we don't live it out. So maybe think of some smaller instances, right? Times when a brother or sister did something undeservedly kind to you, and it's just kind of out of character for them, and you're like, wow, thank you, I wasn't expecting that. Or maybe think of the way parents or parental figures that you respect have cared for you and taken care of you, even when you're just a helpless little baby, right? Not able to do anything for yourself. You can't give anything to your parents when you're a baby, and yet they take care of you, right? They love and nurture you, and you're able to become your own individual person. And you can't pay back those debts necessarily, but that's not the point, right? The point is that we've been given this grace in our lives. So think back to those moments and think about them whenever you are concerned with holding a grudge against somebody right now. If you refuse to forgive someone right now, right? Let's think about those moments too. What are the things that we refuse to forgive people about, and why are we holding them? What is preventing us from living into this forgiving life that Jesus wants us to live into? Creating this holy community, this heaven on earth, like Jesus seems to be very concerned with. What's stopping us from living life as free, forgiven, debt-free individuals?